Okay, so the pyramids of Giza, right? I mean, just thinking about them, like seriously, it just gives me chills. They've been there for so long, thousands of years, and it's like these incredible structures just kind of holding on to all the secrets of, well, a lost world.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
But what if, like, the biggest mystery isn't actually what we can see, standing tall above the desert? What if the real secrets are, well, way down below, like a whole hidden world underground?
It's definitely a captivating thought, isn't it? This idea that beneath these iconic structures, there might be a vast, hidden urban landscape. It almost sounds like, something out of a legend. But the really exciting thing is the claims we're looking into today are actually based on real scientific investigation, not just speculation.
Right. That's what I love about these deep dives. It's taking those, like, what if questions and seeing if there's any real substance to them. And for this one, we're taking a deep dive into this potential underground city, all the buzz around it. We've got research papers, articles, you name it, all about these findings that are popping up thanks to some really cutting edge technology. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to break it all down, understand these claims about this huge subterranean complex, the tech they're using to supposedly see it, and, get into all the debate that's going on in the scientific community about it.
What I find so fascinating about this whole thing is it's not some crazy fringe theory. It's not ancient aliens or anything. We're talking about legit researchers from actual universities using some of the most advanced techniques out there. It's really like, where ancient history meets cutting edge science.
Yeah, totally. So let's get into the details. This whole underground city idea really took off, like it gained serious momentum with this research team from Italy and Scotland. And they've been using something called synthetic aperture radar, or SAR. I'm sure some of our listeners are, experts in remote sensing and all that. But for the rest of us, could you explain what SAR is and how it lets us see underground without, like, actually digging?
Absolutely. It's kind of like, well, imagine a really, really advanced form of medical imaging, right? Like an X-ray or an MRI, but instead of looking inside the human body, it's giving us pictures of what's hidden beneath the Earth's surface. So basically, SAR works by sending out radar signals, which are these pulses of microwave energy, and then it very carefully analyzes the echoes that bounce back. What makes it so amazing for this kind of exploration is that it can actually penetrate through stuff that blocks regular light, like sand, rock, even soil.
Oh, okay. So it's sort of like a superpowered version of sonar, but instead of using sound waves in water, it's using these microwaves to see underground.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah. So by measuring how those signals bounce back, like how strong they are, how long it takes, scientists can build these incredibly detailed images and maps of all the stuff that's underground without having to dig anything up. And that's super important when you're dealing with a place as historically significant and delicate as the Giza Plateau.
Right. You don't want to be digging around willy-nilly in a place like that. So this team aimed their SAR at Giza.
Yeah.
And what did their analysis, their high-tech analysis, tell them about what might be hiding down there?
Well, based on their interpretation of the data, they found what they describe as, get this, a labyrinthine network of chambers, tunnels, and what seemed to be like really large open spaces. It wasn't just a few random things. It looked like a whole intricate system stretching out under the pyramids and the surrounding area.
Whoa, a labyrinth. It's pretty wild. And you mentioned that this kind of lines up with some, long-standing theories about Giza.
Right. Like for centuries, there have been these ideas floating around, even hints in some old texts, that the pyramids weren't just, standalone monuments, but that they were actually part of a much bigger interconnected complex.
Like maybe with living spaces for all the workers who built them.
Exactly. And for the priests, plus storage areas, because, building something that massive, you can imagine the resources involved, right? It would have been a logistical nightmare.
For sure. And what about, like, ceremonial stuff? Weren't the ancient Egyptians super into all those rituals and things?
Oh, absolutely. And that's another big possibility, that some of these underground areas were specifically designed for all those intricate religious rites, maybe even as tombs or special resting places for people who were close to the pharaohs, but not like buried in the pyramids themselves.
So not necessarily the pharaoh's main burial chamber, but maybe like for important officials, high-ranking priests or something like that.
Precisely. And another idea is that these structures could have been used for, well, protection and secrecy. Imagine if there was unrest or, even an invasion. Going underground would have offered some shelter. And they could have kept valuable artifacts down there too, or important religious objects, maybe even building materials for the pyramids that they hadn't used yet.
It's like an ancient underground Fort Knox or something. Okay, so we've got this potential underground maze, maybe used for storage, for ceremonies, maybe as the safe haven.
Uh-huh.
But you hinted earlier that not everyone's buying into this, right? There are some scientists who are, well, a little skeptical. Let's talk about why some archaeologists and Egyptologists are raising their eyebrows, maybe even throwing some red flags.
Yeah, and that's actually a really important part of the scientific process. As they say, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? And a lot of the back and forth that's happening right now is about how to interpret the SAR data. Because as cool as SAR is, it's not like a perfect magic lens, you know? The stuff below the ground, it's complicated, there's a lot going on down there. So some critics, some of the experts we looked at, they're saying, hold on, what if those things they're seeing, what if they're not actually man-made structures? What if it's just natural stuff like, limestone cavities or underground water channels? What if the tech is misinterpreting that stuff?
So it's kind of like those optical illusions where, like, is it a vase or is it two faces?
Exactly. The technology gives you a picture, but how you interpret that picture, what it actually represents, that can depend on, well, your perspective, your expertise, all sorts of things. And that leads to another big point of debate.
Hmm.
We don't have any physical proof yet, at least not from the underground city itself. SAR and these other non-invasive techniques, they're great for giving us clues, but they don't definitively prove that there are like man-made walls or pottery shards or anything like that down there. We need actual excavation to find that stuff.
So, like, seeing a possible wall on a radar image is one thing, but actually holding a piece of that wall, well, that's totally different. What about the whole historical context? I mean, did the ancient Egyptians even have the technology and the know-how to build something this big underground?
That's a great question, and I know you've been thinking a lot about that. I mean, the pyramids themselves, they're a clear sign that these people were like master engineers.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But building something this massive and complex underground, a whole network like that, it kind of pushes the boundaries of what we think they were capable of. I mean, were their tools, their materials, their understanding of architecture, was it enough? It's a bit of a chicken or the egg situation.
Right, because if we found proof of this city, then that would mean they did have the ability to build it, but without that proof.
Exactly. And then you have to factor in the ethical side of things, too. The Giza Plateau is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And as enormous and strong as they are, the pyramids are actually pretty delicate. You can't just go digging around without risking serious damage to those structures.
Right.
So archaeologists, especially the ones working on sites like this, they have to be really careful. The excitement of discovery, it has to be balanced with the responsibility to protect these places for future generations.
It's like this amazing opportunity, but also a huge responsibility.
Right.
So let's say, just for a minute, that this underground city is real. What would that mean? How would it change our understanding of ancient Egypt?
Oh, if this thing is confirmed, it would be absolutely revolutionary. Because it would suggest that Giza wasn't just a city of the dead, a place for tombs and all that. It would mean it was a real, living, breathing, sprawling urban center, way bigger and more complex than we ever imagined.
There was this whole other city hiding right under our noses.
Wow. Yeah. And imagine what we could learn from that, right? We could find out so much about the people who lived and worked there, their daily lives, their social structure, their economy, even their religious practices, all from exploring these spaces that have been untouched for, like, thousands of years. It would be like rewriting history.
Absolutely. So what happens now? What are the researchers planning to do to figure out if this city is really there or if those SAR readings are showing something else?
Well, what they want to do is use even more high-tech tools, different types of imaging, to get a better look. They've mentioned something called ground-penetrating radar, or GPR. It's like SAR, but it uses higher frequency radio waves, so you get a sharper image, although usually not as deep.
Okay.
They're also talking about using magnetometry. That lets you find things underground by looking at changes in the Earth's magnetic field.
Oh.
And then there's seismic tomography, which is using sound waves to create images. So the idea is to combine all this data, get all these different perspectives, and build a really clear, detailed picture of what's actually down there.
So it's like using different ways of seeing underground and putting it all together to get the full picture.
Exactly.
But what about actually digging? Are they going to start, breaking ground anytime soon?
Well, from what they've said, they might do some very targeted, controlled excavations. But only after they've done all this other analysis, and only in very specific spots where the data is like really strong, really pointing to something significant, they understand how sensitive this site is. So any digging would be, really carefully planned and would need approval from the Egyptian authorities and all those international organizations that work to protect these places.
That makes sense. Proceed with caution. So just to sum it all up for everyone, this whole hidden city thing, it's a super exciting possibility. The evidence from the SAR is pretty compelling, but for now, it's still just a possibility. We need more evidence, right? More data, more analysis.
Right. The scientific community, they're cautious. They want to be sure, which is, how it should be. But it is pretty amazing, isn't it? I mean, we're using all this incredible technology to look back in time, explore the past, without even having to dig.
It really makes you wonder, with all these advancements in, like remote sensing and all that, what else is out there? What other incredible secrets are just, like, waiting to be discovered, maybe buried right beneath our feet? I mean, just think about it, right?
Yeah.
What if what we find changes everything we thought we knew about history?
Yeah.
Pretty amazing, right? And that's something to think about, As we go about our day, as we walk around, what's under there? It's a question that'll stick with me, that's for sure.